Good morning, everyone. I'm Zach Stewart, formerly served as a research assistant professor at Kansas State University with the Sustainable Intensification Innovation Lab and served as the program manager for the SOILS Consortium. While I'll continue to be involved in the leadership of the SOILS Consortium, my role has changed as I'm currently with USAID, the Bureau for Resilience and Food Security, Center for Egg-Led Growth, and serve as the Production Systems Advisor. In this presentation, I'm going to give a brief overview of the SOILS Consortium, our goals and objectives, but spend most of the time discussing the progress made over the last few years and discussing at the end some about the future direction of the SOILS Consortium. So first, why and what is the need for the SOILS Consortium? So soil health is at the core of improving fertilizer efficiency and the adoption of improved seed varieties, two technologies that were critically important to the Green Revolution, but has in many ways not been scaled or adopted in sub-Saharan Africa. The adoption of improved fertilizer and improved seed varieties hasn't necessarily been scaled, as soil health is a critical component to that. Though there has been much work that has been done in this space, it's been largely project-based, short-term, and uncoordinated between implementing partners and donor partners. The vision of the SOILS Consortium is to improve the health and fertility of soils as the foundation for nutritious food production and resilient and sustainable livelihoods. This vision is implemented through innovative research, coordination, capacity building, networking, data sharing, and communications approaches. I want to stress, though, the consortium, this is not just about more research and funding and conducting more research. Though research will be a part of our activities and has been, it's largely been focused on gap filling. Whereas much of our effort is around coordination, integration, and alignment of USAID and global soil activities. There are four key objectives to the SOILS Consortium: agenda setting and prioritization, which we have spent significant time and investments in developing a strategy to achieve the objectives and overcome the challenges identified during the prioritization process. The first year engaged many stakeholders and developed priorities both regionally and globally, which are published in the Journal of Experimental Botany. Two, coordination, to improve coordination, alignment, and integration for a more coherent and consensus-driven approach. Three, provide a partnership platform for connecting, implementing, and developmental partners, addressing soil health and fertility issues. And finally, making sure that we're focused on prioritized and regionally applicable issues across broad production system zones, building connections between partners to address high-level and system-wide issues. Just briefly, the consortium model really leverages IFDC's global reach and the Sustainable Intensification Innovation Lab as lead partners. The leadership team consists of Drs. Jerry Glover, John Peters, Upendra Singh, and Var Prasad. I serve as the program manager, and leveraging the expertise of U.S. university partners in prioritized areas. At Auburn University, Drs. Beth Gertal and Joey Shaw. Michigan State University, Drs. Six Knapp and Nicole Mason. At University of Colorado Boulder, Dr. Jason Neff. And with USDA ARS, Dr. Jeff Herrick all serve as core partners. And finally, Africa Rising has been a large USAID investment in soil fertility, much of their work in the soil fertility realm. And Drs. Fred Cazito and Bernard Vinlawi serve on the advisory board. Two areas that emerged through the prioritization process. One in West Africa in Niger, and the other in East Africa in Ethiopia. And even though I'll be talking about them in terms of country-specific activities, these were identified as regionally appropriate and prioritized activities. and where we could leverage ongoing and current activities for these unified goals. So in Niger, but applicable to the Sudano-Sahelian region, a priority and identified issue was rapid expansion of croplands onto traditional rangeland, which has increasingly led to conflicts and further increased land degradation. Little guidance has been provided on which land classifications are more suitable for different management practices to maximize overall ecosystem productivity. Even though there's crop production in much of this area as it's been expanded, the increased use of fertilizer and improved seeds may not be the best thing to maximize overall ecosystem productivity. Thus, there is need, and the objective of this work, for guidance targeting of land management innovations of whether or not specific, especially at the commune level guidance, whether or not communes are more appropriate for livestock production, crop and fodder, rangeland, or conservation. This work has leveraged past and ongoing work and the strengths of our core partners and other implementing partners to begin to pull in GIS layers, the top down, to answer this question. But also, we recognize that that only gets so far, and that we do need, for hyper-localized land management recommendations, we do need the inclusion of site-specific variables. And that's where the incorporation of soil texture, soil cover, and being able to identify that is critical to improving this hyper-localized guidance of land management recommendation. This work leverages partnerships with USDA, ICRISAT, University of Colorado, Michigan State, NRAM, and IFDC and SIIL. The second example where our work has been targeted is in Ethiopia, and specifically, but also applicable to East Africa, is this need for improved fertilizer recommendations. So in the case of Ethiopia, much work had been done, and perhaps the furthest in investments of improving fertilizer recommendations. Ethiosis was tremendously successful in using soil analysis to map soil nutrient critical levels, this GIS down scaling of information. However, these data were not connected to site-specific crop response data, nor variables defining the heterogeneous responses. So critical is fertilizer response trials and making sure that that is connected to this information, which to this point has not been done. Past fertilizer, as I mentioned, there has been a lot of past fertilizer crop response data collected. However, it's had limited value because it's been project specific, used different protocols. And so there was really a need to unify this process so that it could be linked with ethiosis. So our first activities in Ethiopia and priority effort was around unifying stakeholders. So we conducted stakeholder meetings, brought together these partners working in this space, and developed a unified fertilizer crop response protocol with Ethiopian institutions that had been adopted and utilized this last cropping season. And we also implemented, which we used to implement 300 crop response trials as gap filling, in addition to gleaning as much information from past crop response trial data, which has been shared into a unified database to link into ethiosis. So again, this improved linkage of site-specific information, the crop response data, as well as ethiosis and the GIS down variables. I also failed to mention, but especially the collection and inclusion of site-specific variables. So, which was shown in past work, how important slope was, even within a defined zone where a fertilizer recommendation was being made. Slope dramatically changed the response of the fertilizer being applied. And so incorporating these site-specific variables was critical in that space. So as you can see, there's an emerging theme here, both the importance of this top-down, bottom-up to linkage of that information to improve suitable recommendations. So suitable management recommendations require both GIS and site-specific inputs. Without one or the other, the recommendation is generally both less accurate and less useful. Regardless of the region or regional land and soil management priorities, this downscale, upscale issue is at the core. As we saw, as we were talking in Niger with the land capability classification work, or in Ethiopia with the improvement of fertilizer recommendations. That same concept of improving that linkage for hyper-localized recommendations is at the core. So this is a global emerging priority. Globally, there is need to better integrate this information to provide scalable and suitable soil management recommendations. However, regionally, the parameters within that structure will need to be tailored and refined for those specific management recommendations. So finally, as that global agenda is beginning to emerge and we're tailoring that with partners, it's really important that we have alignment of donor partners around a common agenda, such as one that I mentioned, and the regional agendas that identifies regional activities that we're all doing, strengths and priorities and gaps, and ensures that everyone's activities are aligned with the common agenda and avoids duplication and isolated projects. Also in the future, we hope to expand and plan to expand the partnerships with implementing partners who have expertise in priority areas for this global agenda and the regional agendas. And finally, expanded partnership with African umbrella organizations such as FARA and ASARECA, who are well positioned to guide, unify, and coordinate continental and regional applicable adaptation of this platform. Thank you for your attention.